You can't make this stuff up. This next story comes from a viewer who says, "I don't believe this happened anywhere in particular. So let's call this one Brooklyn, New York, the city that never sleeps." But in one aging apartment building on a quiet street, the residents were starting to wish it would. For weeks, strange noises had haunted the nights. Whispers of footsteps in empty halls, the creak of doors when no one was awake, furniture scraping against wooden floors long after midnight. The tenants would hear them through thin walls and hollow ceilings. Some brushed it off as the building settling, others as rats or faulty pipes. But those who stayed awake at night knew these were human sounds. Someone was moving when no one should have been. It began subtly. A single mother living on the second floor complained that food had gone missing from her refrigerator. A man on the third floor swore his locked bedroom door had been opened while he was out. No one wanted to admit it aloud, but a feeling crept in. A feeling that someone else was inside their apartments when they weren't looking. And then, there were the noises, always the noises. The dragging, the footsteps, the soft sound of something metallic clinking in the dark. At first, the landlord dismissed the complaints. "Old building," he said, waving them away. But one night, a young couple on the fourth floor woke to the sound of heavy breathing. Not from each other, not from their room. It came from behind their wall, as if someone was standing right there, listening. Terrified, they pressed their ears closer, and the breathing stopped. In its place came a low shuffle, then a knock, faint but deliberate, echoing from inside the wall itself. That was when they called the police. The first officers who arrived did a routine sweep. They checked the hallways, the basement, and the rooftop. Nothing seemed unusual, but one officer noted something strange. A door to a fifth-floor apartment stood slightly ajar, though the tenant had reportedly been away on a trip for weeks. Inside, the air was damp, stale, and the curtains were drawn. The furniture was covered in sheets, dust gathered thickly across every surface. The place seemed abandoned, but the officers couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been there recently. It was only after they left that the noises grew bolder. Residents claimed to hear dragging sounds late into the night, as if something heavy was being pulled across floors. One tenant, returning from work at 3 a.m., swore he saw a shadow slip under the crack of a door before vanishing into silence. Another described a pale hand reaching out from the stairwell banister, disappearing as quickly as it appeared. Fear was spreading like a fever. Finally, detectives were assigned to the case. They installed hidden cameras in the hallways and basements of the building, determined to catch whoever was terrorizing the residents. For days, the footage showed nothing but flickering lights and tenants going about their lives. Until one night, around 2:47 a.m., a figure appeared. The grainy footage revealed a man, tall and gaunt, slipping silently from the shadows of the supposedly vacant fifth-floor apartment. His face was obscured by a hood, and his movements were unnervingly careful, almost animal-like. He carried a large bag, bulging with objects. He moved door to door, pausing, listening, then slipping a set of tools from his coat pocket. The man was not just wandering, he was hunting. When detectives raided the fifth-floor apartment again, what they found chilled even seasoned officers. Behind a false wall in the bedroom was a hidden crawl space. Inside, piles of stolen goods were stacked high: jewelry, wallets, watches, even photographs taken from the tenants' apartments. But there was more. Blood-stained clothing, knives, their blades dulled and bent, and a stack of newspaper clippings detailing unsolved assaults across Brooklyn, each circled in red ink. The horror deepened when they discovered a narrow tunnel carved through the walls of the building. It connected several apartments, allowing the intruder to slip inside homes undetected. The tunnels were damp, lined with wires and pipes, and smelled of mold and decay. Police realized he had been moving inside the very walls, listening, watching, waiting. The strange noises, the breathing, the knocks. They were not the building settling. They were him. Always him. As the investigation unfolded, detectives connected the man to a string of violent crimes across the city. He had once been a burglar, targeting apartment buildings for valuables. But somewhere along the way, the crimes escalated. A tenant in Queens had been stabbed after confronting an intruder. A woman in the Bronx had gone missing, her apartment ransacked. The hidden space in Brooklyn was not just a hiding spot for stolen goods. It was a lair. When the police finally closed in, the chase was nothing short of chaos. Officers swarmed the building in the dead of night. Tenants huddled together in fear as the sound of boots thundered through the halls. The intruder fled into his tunnels, slipping into the walls like a rat. From inside, muffled screams echoed as officers tore down plaster, ripping apart the building in search of him. He moved fast, darting from floor to floor, his footsteps pounding just beyond reach. One officer described shining his flashlight into a narrow opening, only to see two glowing eyes staring back before vanishing into darkness. The chase stretched across hours as the man used every hidden passage to evade capture. At one point, he burst into a tenant's apartment, knocking over furniture before vanishing out the fire escape. The building itself became a maze, and the residents, unwilling spectators, watched from their windows as shadows darted through stairwells and hallways. Finally, the pursuit ended in the basement. The suspect had tried to slip through a broken vent that led to the alley outside, but his bag of stolen goods slowed him down. Officers cornered him in the dark, his face pale, his hands trembling, clutching a knife. The confrontation was short, brutal, and bloody. He lunged, desperate, but was overpowered, dragged screaming from the tunnels he had called home. When the man was unmasked, he was no stranger. He had once lived in the very building, evicted years earlier for theft. He had returned, unnoticed, slipping back into the cracks of the place he once called his own. For months, he had been living inside the walls, preying on the same neighbors who thought he was long gone. The Brooklyn apartment mystery ended with his arrest, but the scars remained. The residents never forgot the feeling of being watched. The nights filled with phantom sounds, the horror of knowing he had been there all along. Even after the building was repaired, after the tunnels were sealed and the crawl space destroyed, whispers lingered. Some tenants claimed to still hear faint knocks at night, as if the walls themselves remembered. And perhaps in some way, they did. That was Scary Mysteries, and I'm your host. Subscribe below to catch our new episodes every week.